We've got a snowstorm headed for the Midwest and East Coast this weekend, along with a major Arctic blast. It's Thursday, December 11th, 2025. Let's get into the weather updates. Let's start off by taking a look at our European model. Right now, we have a lot of cold air diving into the east, a lot of moisture streaming into the northwest. You can see some good rain and snow falling up there in the Northern Rockies and out there in the PNW. Now, moving forward through today and tomorrow, we are going to have a clipper system diving down through Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, trying to put a little snow down into central and eastern Kentucky, potentially southern Ohio. And this storm is going to push up against the Appalachian Mountain Range here around West Virginia. And this could be an issue. I believe we actually have blizzard warnings up in this region right now. We're going to get some high winds. You can see our isobars are actually pretty close together here. And we're going to have some snow that's going to begin to pile up in the mountains out here. So if you're out there in West Virginia, eastern Kentucky, if you're anywhere up there in the mountains, just know that this could be some pretty quick hitting snow, could pile up quickly, and we could have some windy conditions with that as well. So that's likely why they have those blizzard warnings up currently. Now, right behind this, we still have some cold air diving into the east. We're going to start to see a low pressure system dive down into the Great Lakes region. Now, there's a lot of cold air associated with this jet stream currently. Now, this is going to activate some of our lake effect snow up here. Erie, upstate New York, western Michigan, UP of Michigan, northeastern Ohio, you're going to start to see some of this lake effect snow. And right out to the west of this, we have another clipper system. Now we are looking at Saturday morning, beginning to dive down into Montana and the Dakotas. And once again, head down there towards Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio. So a lot of systems have been hitting this region. We're going to be running well above our snow averages before we get into January, right out here in this region. Now this storm begins to move down to the south, and this is the system that could bring us snow out there to the East Coast, including the Mid-Atlantic and New England coast. Getting into Saturday afternoon and Sunday morning, our system is moving through the Midwest. This could be some good snow potentially. We'll have to see how much Chicago gets involved. This system currently on the Euros a little bit south of you guys. Central Illinois, Indianapolis, Columbus, Dayton, Louisville, Cincinnati, Des Moines, Dubuque, a lot of decent sized cities here getting involved. Pittsburgh could see some good snow from this too. The question is, do we have enough energy to bring this snow across the Appalachian Range and put some along the coast? I believe we do. And the other question is, do we get a positively, neutrally, or negatively tilted trough? How amplified is this trough? Can we get this thing to stall out near the coast? Is this just going to move right off the coast? This is really going to affect our snow totals. I'm starting to get pretty confident that we're going to have flakes flying up and down the Mid-Atlantic coast, potentially all the way up to Boston. The question is, can we get a little bit of a neutral to negative tilt to allow this low to deepen, to allow that snow to pile up? And again, as this system moves off, we're probably still going to have a little bit of that lake effect snow, because this right here is when we're getting our potentially record-breaking cold air for this time of year. Let's look at our latest snow totals on the models. Beginning with our European, now this is just about 90 hours out. Pretty good strip of snow through South Dakota, southwest North Dakota, eastern Montana, and this would be a lot of low elevation snow as well. Central Iowa, central Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, you all get involved. West Virginia, you can see some snow piling up in the mountains there. This would be decent snow as well for Pittsburgh. And then you can see all of this lake effect snow out here for upstate New York, Michigan, Erie, portions of Ohio as well. Getting into our Mid-Atlantic region, you can see about an inch out here in Boston, 3 to 3.5 for New York City, about 3.5 for Philly, and then DC to Baltimore, somewhere between 2 to 2.5 inches of snow, at least on the latest European run. Here's what the National Weather Service thinks over the next 72 hours. Some good snow, obviously, up here in Montana. Lots of low elevation snow for eastern Montana, including Billings. Potentially, this is the expected amount, potentially around 8 inches of snow. Getting out here into South Dakota, not bad. You could see a 2 to 4 inch blanket across portions of the state. Really the same with Iowa, Des Moines, 3.5 inches, Waterloo, 3.5, Mason City, 2.5, Cedar Rapids, 3.5, Davenport, maybe around 4. Now, Illinois, as this clipper moves through, maybe it's steepening a little bit. We're getting a little bit more moisture. You can see here, Springfield, we're looking at potentially around 7 inches, 8 inches. For Decatur, Champaign, not too bad out here in central Illinois. Chicago looks to be on the low end right now at about 1.3. Indianapolis, potentially 6.5. Louisville, potentially 4 inches. Cincinnati, 6 inches. Columbus, 4. Dayton, 4 to 5 inches. Expect it. Now, I will tell you on the high end, we could see a lot more than this. I'll go over that in a second. And then you can see we're getting some pretty good snow piles up here in low elevation and high elevation West Virginia, a blanket of 3 to 8 inches, depending your elevation out there. Pittsburgh right now, 2 to 3 inches is possible. That's the expected. You can see the lake effect snow up here. Rochester, all the way up to Watertown, we could see really anywhere between 4 inches to a foot. You know how lake effect bands work. It's really tough to tell where they're going to set up. You get under a lake effect band, it could be, your totals could be a lot higher than expected. Erie up to Buffalo, same type of thing here. You could see 4 inches. You could see 8, 9 inches, maybe a foot if you get lucky under a band there. But we are going to obviously have this lake effect snow being activated. The UP of Michigan you can see as well, and then the west coast of Michigan. Out here near the coast, DC, Baltimore, Philly, potentially 2 to 3 inches. Up here near New York City, maybe a half an inch to an inch. That's the expected amount from the National Weather Service. We look at the high end though, and you could see what could happen here. A couple of inches up in Boston, 5 inches in Philly, 4 to 5 inches in New York City, potentially 5 inches, Washington, D.C., Baltimore. If you get the high end, you get that trough tilting, you get that low deepening out here and potentially stalling a little bit closer to the coast, suddenly you have a lot more snow falling, you have a lot more snow accumulating. But you can see on the high end as well, we're pushing that snow all the way out to the coast. On the high end, Pittsburgh, 8 to 9 inches. If you get the system setting up right for you, and then look at Kentucky, look at Ohio, look at Indiana, Illinois, your totals are just way, way up in this region. You're seeing a large region in here where we're talking about 6 to 9 inches of snow instead of 2 to 4, 3 to 5 inches of snow. So we're going to look at the vorticity map real quick. When I talk about this system negatively tilting, let's move forward in time. The good news for you guys out near the coast is here's our 540 line. And if I just push this forward, and if you're north of this 540 line, you can get snow. You're going to be freezing, or at least parts of your atmosphere is going to be freezing. Typically, if you're this far north of the 540 line, you're going to have your surface freezing as well. So cold air looks like it's going to be there. That's the first ingredient. And we're going to have the opportunity for moisture this time. This piece of energy dives down to the south here and interacts with our jet stream. You kind of have this tilt to the left on this map. This is called a positive tilt. Now, if you're positively tilted, you're not really getting that pull of moisture off the Atlantic like you'd want for a heavier snowstorm. But on the latest Euro, it does start to kind of go neutrally tilted right here as it gets towards the coast. So we're starting to get a little bit of pull here. We're starting to get a little bit more energy, potentially a deepening low, right as the system approaches the coast with this neutral tilt. If we can get this system before it approaches the coast, negatively tilting out to the right here, you can get some good snow with the system. You could have a deepening low, and you could have the system beginning to pull up the coast, kind of stalling that jet up the coast, allowing that snow to continue to dump. Question is, can this jet amplify a little bit earlier? Can we see it dig down into the south a little bit earlier, allowing that negative tilt to happen? Can we get this piece of energy to the north to dive down, potentially a little bit farther to the west here? How can this piece of energy up here that's diving down, interacting with this jet stream here, how is this going to interact? How is this going to tilt our jet? This is going to really, really decide if we get a dusting to an inch out there, if we get 4 to 5 inches, or maybe even we get more than 5 inches out there along the coast. It's cold, so if you get this negative tilt, you could get some really nice snow ratios, meaning just a little bit of precipitation could lead to a lot of piling snow. Let's quickly go over what's happening with our temperatures, because like I said, we have some record-breaking cold moving in. Now, looking at the 6 to 10 day, it looks hot for most of us across the country, except for the upper Midwest, and then really right along the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic, and New England. But in the short term, trust me, in the short term this weekend, it's going to be cold. Notice though, this is the mid-December warm-up I was worried about. I'm still hopeful this pushes out before Christmas though. 6 to 10 day, 8 to 14 day, we really get this kind of zonal look where we're just hot everywhere from the mid-tier states down to the south, and we're average to slightly below average up there in the northern tier states. And then we're still looking at 3 to 4 weeks, and we're getting a little bit of cold air pushing potentially a little bit farther down in the states. Maybe that zonal flow kind of drops a little bit to the south. Our jet stream starts to punch back down into the states. So going to be an interesting progression here. We're going to go into more details in just a second. Most of that precipitation over the next 6 to 10 days, staying up north. You know, we have these clipper systems up here, still have a ton of moisture flooding the Northwest, Pacific Northwest right now. And I use the word flooding because we do actually have a lot of flooding issues happening up there. I know in Washington, potentially portions of Idaho and Oregon as well. And that moisture is going to continue to funnel out towards Montana. So something to watch up there if you're up in the Northwest. Moving out towards 8 to 14 days, that's going to continue. This is going to bring some serious issues for the Northwest. Again, flooding could continue up in that region. We're dry for the South. We're still seeing some clipper systems and low pressure systems trying to move through the northern tier states and then pushing out towards 3 to 4 weeks. We've been watching this for a while, but as we get towards the end of December, could see a lot of moisture out here in the Ohio Valley, pushing up into the Northeast, and then still up in the Pacific Northwest. This is going to be an issue. Let me take you through our temperature anomalies moving through this weekend. This is crazy, and I can't believe we're now basically confirming this. We're 60 hours out. Widespread, 30 to 40 degrees below average. Minnesota, the Dakotas, Iowa, portions of Missouri, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, portions of Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Tennessee. Guys, This is insane. This is extremely cold air for early in December, and I'm going to show you what the actual temperatures will be here in a second. The coldest of this air arrives Friday afternoon, Friday night. It's starting to push down into the Ohio Valley Saturday, and then Sunday it's pushing all the way out there towards the coast, and Monday it's still lingering around. Tuesday, some of that cold air starts to move out, and then Wednesday, this is when we could see a little bit of a warm-up beginning for much of us across the states, not just the west, but this warm air pushing out east. So how cold are we going to be? Well, let's push forward here. I'm going to show you the actual temperatures, not the feels like yet. So actual temperatures, as we get into Saturday morning, we're looking at widespread negatives up here. You can see Minneapolis, -12, trying to get down to the negatives in Chicago. Now we push this a little bit farther forward into the weekend, and this is actual temperatures. We're seeing negative temperatures moving down into central to southern Illinois, trying to push down towards St. Louis into Indiana, potentially northern Kentucky. Now, let me show you what the feels like temperatures are here. And yeah, you're seeing this correctly. We're almost getting negative feels like temperatures down into Nashville with the latest Euro. -24 degrees in Chicago, -31 in Minneapolis. Look at this cold air. We're talking about -25 in Des Moines, -9 to -12 degrees potentially in this region here, St. Louis. So just extremely, extremely cold air. Let's push out towards the east. Almost getting into the single digits in the Outer Banks. We're feeling like we're 24 degrees in Tallahassee, Florida, potentially around 15 degrees in Atlanta. Getting into our feels like getting into the negatives in Pittsburgh. We move into Monday morning, which is really going to be the coldest out here. Our feels like temperatures down in Tallahassee, Florida are trying to get down to 22, 21 degrees. You can see almost getting into the single digits along the coast here. We have negatives widespread, feels like temperatures up here in New England, and then almost single digits from New York City down through Philly and then out there towards DC and Baltimore. Crazy, crazy cold air. We could be feeling like we're 15 degrees in Atlanta, Georgia. So especially mid-December. You can get this later in January. Coldest day of the year on average is January 20th, but this is going to break some records, if not a lot of records. And this is what's going to help potentially allow some of that snowfall to fall near the mid-Atlantic and New England coast with this system over the weekend. The last thing I wanted to quickly address is, although it looks all doom and gloom with warm air through the rest of December, you can see right here in our European weeklies, our Arctic oscillation wants to begin heading negative really around the 18th. Okay, this is not what you'd expect if you expect just a warming trend over the next month. This is a cooling trend. Now, do we get this cold air to move in right before Christmas, which I'm still thinking we're going to get another push of cold air before Christmas time? That's the big question. But taking a look, that's the Arctic oscillation. Here's our EPO. Again, this is a trend towards colder air again in January. Our NAO wants to trend negative as well. This is not a doom and gloom. It's going to get really warm out east. Our winter's over. First of all, most people don't even think winter starts until after December 20th or 21st. I go by meteorological winter December 1st. So for most of you, guess what? Winter hasn't started. For me, winter has started. But again, our teleconnections aren't telling the story of a very warm and dull winter out east. They're telling a story of a warm up, a zonal flow for a little bit, and then back into a cold pattern for the east. So if you're out east and you want a good winter, there's really nothing to worry about right here, at least with what our teleconnections are telling us and taking a look at this from a climatological perspective. I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I upload videos like this every morning, and right after I upload them, I get on and live stream to answer all of your weather-related questions. And if you want to join an awesome weather Discord, the link is right down in the description of all my YouTube videos and lives. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video or the next live stream.